Happy Wednesday, and welcome to a Brain Scratch update. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for joining me here today. In a story that has grabbed the hearts and minds of people, not only all over this nation, but all over this world, we're still wondering what happened to this family that went for a day hike. John Jarish, Ellen Chung, their 1-year-old daughter Miju, and their dog Oski all pass away in almost the same area, 3 of them very close to each other. It seems like Ellen was just a matter of yards away from them. What's going on with this? I was hoping for a big update. We're waiting for toxicology results, and the time frames that were given out initially, we should be getting close to those being released. We don't quite have that. What we do have is a bit of detail about the timeline of that day. Gives us a much better sense of when they actually got out there. We've got few additional details about some of the conditions that were going on out there at that time, but really a new theory as to what might be happening. And is it really feasible? I don't know. We need to talk about that a little bit, but let's go ahead and share a screen. Here is a picture of the family killed on their hike. It's a terrible situation. Prime suspect, Mother Nature, still Mother Nature, even with this new aspect we're going to be talking about today. But let's go ahead and start at sierranewsonline.com. As of the date of this update, cause of death remains a question. This is an update from August 26th. Family information: Jonathan Jarish, age 45, Ellen Chung, age 30, Aurelia Miju Chung Jarish, age 1, and Oski, 8 years old, and Ozzy Akita Mix. Here we have a timeline, and it does confirm, at least from some witness sightings here, that they went out pretty early in the morning. So I know one of the things that's being talked about is the possibility of exposure. How hot did it get that day? We're hearing from the sheriff it could have gotten over 100. This is an area that it was ravaged by fires just a few years ago. So the amount of cover that you would find out there to kind of keep you from direct sun exposure, not as high as it probably normally would be for that area. And admittedly, with the information we looked into on the Brain Scratch episode, this wasn't an easy trail. Bunch of switchbacks, I believe about 1,000 feet in terms of elevation. But for the sequence of events, we also get another confirmation here from August 14th, 2021. John Jarish actually researched Heights Cove, the hike, via his phone app. Then on the following day, they go out for their hike. It seems like at 7:45 a.m., a witness actually sees the family traveling towards the trailhead in their vehicle. So maybe not as early a start as I was originally thinking, but we still have them getting out there fairly early in the morning. This hike is roughly around 2 miles out and back. Even with it being pretty tough, the amount of time they should have been out there, probably on the long side, would have been somewhere like 4 or 5 hours. 11 p.m., family friend reports them missing. That's actually the following day at 11 p.m. on the 16th. On the 17th, which we're only talking a matter of a few hours after they were reported missing, their car is located at the trailhead. Of course, a few minutes after that, they start the search and rescue mission. And then by 11 a.m. the following morning, and once again, I called this out, and I still think this is an example of some really good work on law enforcement's part. The family is located within 12 hours of them being reported missing, but unfortunately, they are all deceased. On the 19th of August, autopsies completed on the family and the dog, all currently pending toxicology. So the quick version of that is there was no obvious wounds that would explain why they weren't alive anymore. So toxicology, very important part of this. On the 20th of August, search warrants issued for the phone found with the family. They also did search warrants for the family home and cars. Nothing significant was located. Then a couple days later, on the 23rd, additional water samples are collected from water sources along the trail area. We know that they also did have a water pack with them. That water was sent in for testing as well. On the 24th, the cell phone was delivered to FBI for data extraction. As of this update, still awaiting results on that. And then on August 25th, search warrants issued for possible social media access, which I know I bumped into a few accounts of theirs. So they're definitely going to have some information to process there. Is it going to be information that helps them in terms of the investigation or not? I don't know. They seemed, at least from what I saw on social media, like they were pretty open about the type of life they were living. It seemed like they were living a very happy, world traveling, concert going, and then making this big change for their life, moving to this new area, kind of reconnecting with nature. But who knows what else they might find in social media access. Over at people.com, they're stating 2 causes of death have been ruled out. And I'm kind of interested by this because one of them is somewhat obvious. The other one, I don't know how they could reach this conclusion without the toxicology being done, but the sheriff's office officially ruled out 2 causes: exposure to chemicals along the trail the family were on, and use of a gun or another deadly weapon. So obviously the easy one to rule out is use of a gun or another deadly weapon, because that trauma would have been very easy to find for the autopsy, and it didn't come back. Exposure to chemicals along the trail the family were on, I don't know how you rule that out necessarily, unless they're going based on their investigation of the area and they're just saying, we were out there, we didn't see any significant sources of chemicals or exposure that could have happened to them like that. But it just seems kind of strange, because if they were poisoned by something, let's say, you would need the toxicology to make that determination. So exposure to chemicals being completely ruled out, I wish we had better details. Unfortunately, these articles don't. Here's a quote from Sheriff Jeremy Breesy. "We know the family and friends of John and Ellen are desperate for answers. Our team of detectives are working around the clock." And obviously, not an easy case. Probably one of the toughest cases that I've seen in a long time here on the channel. Shockingly so. It's mind-blowing. What is going on in this area that could take 4 lives? We've got very, very different sizes of human beings. We've got a different species in terms of the dog. What is effective enough that it could have ended all of their lives in terms of time that is so close that all of their bodies are located in the same area, with the farthest stretch being about, I believe it's 30 yards for where Ellen was found. But over at sanfrancisco.cbslocal.com, federal park officials shut down trails. So this is kind of interesting. I don't want to retread everything from the previous video, but we know there was warnings that went out about the algae blooms that were happening in the area. They went out about a month before this hike happened. But now we have this instance happen. And then 2 weeks after that, which is a pretty considerable amount of time, we've got the federal parks officials shutting down the trails. They're saying that, they're concerned about the safety of other people out there. They're just going to shut them down. Federal park officials ordered the closure of a trail in Mariposa County Sunday, where the bodies of a family and their dog were discovered dead from unknown causes earlier this month. Several recreational sites and trailheads around the Savage Lundy Trail, and that's the name of the actual trail where their vehicle was found and their bodies were found. And then Sierra National Forest were closed for a month to provide for public safety, according to the Park Service order. Per the order, anyone using or being anywhere near the listed trailheads could be subject to fines of up to $5,000 or $10,000 if they are a group. Investigators said this week that they were still unsure of what killed the family. Last week, they ruled out that possible gases from a nearby mine could have been the culprit, but there's concern it's still a hazardous site. I'm wondering if that's a better explanation about that, what we heard on the last article in terms of what they were ruling out, because if they think it's a specific mine, they might have done some testing in that particular area and said, okay, no, there isn't carbon monoxide coming out of this thing. We know that this isn't a factor in this case. And you wouldn't have to wait for the toxicology results for that necessarily if you thought that was going to be the source of the gases. The trails will stay closed until September 26th, though that is subject to change. Now, that, seemingly makes sense. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that it was 2 weeks later that closure, that lockdown kind of happened like that. But there's even another step further here at cbsnews.com. close to 28 miles along the Merced River actually get shut down. They're saying that's where high levels of toxic algae were detected. The announcement comes just days after officials closed access to trails in the area. So we had that 2-week gap. Then they closed down the trail where the family was found. Then a few days after that, they're saying we're not just closing that off, we're closing off everything that basically gets to that water source that we think there's a possibility they got to, the Merced. The Bureau of Land Management closed campgrounds and recreation areas along the river between the towns of Briceburg and Bagby. Closure to the Merced River's recreation areas will stay in effect until September 17th. So interestingly, it doesn't seem like one necessarily prompted the other, because we know the trail closures for a month. This closure is only going until September 17th for a matter of a couple weeks. But it's what is going on? What are they finding out there? I have to believe that there was some information or something had changed in that 2-week span for them to all of a sudden say, oh, that trailhead that we left open for the last 2 weeks, yeah, let's go ahead and close that off. It just seems like something had to come into play there, but it doesn't seem like we're getting that information publicly. Over at sfgate.com, another culprit weighed in deaths of California family. And honestly, when I was doing the original Brain Scratch episode, I did run into one mention of this. I don't remember if I included it, but I didn't look into it too much because there seems to be a simple assumption about this that I think a lot of us would make. But is it actually a true assumption? Now, lightning strikes have been added into the mix. Law enforcement are investigating possible lightning strikes in the area at the times of the death. That was reported by the New York Times originally. Now, my first assumption would be if lightning strikes happened and they were substantial enough to end all of these lives, wouldn't there be some physical information to show that? Shouldn't there be some impact point, some type of burning, something along those lines? But here, the article gives us some different information. According to the National Weather Service, being struck by lightning is primarily an injury to the nervous system, often with brain injury and nerve injury. Serious burns seldom occur. Now, I went looking more into this, and quite honestly, there's images I don't want you guys to have to look at. I found instances where severe burning does occur. Effectively, there's 6 different factors when it comes to lightning strikes that can harm a person. One of them in particular is the heat. So if that happens where all of a sudden you've got a severe flash of heat that has run through your body, like we're talking thousands of degrees in temperature, it effectively can instantly cook part of your body. And I did see pictures that were extremely graphic that were showing this happen. Now, according to NWS, they're saying that that's fairly rare. But what they also note here is death, which is extraordinarily rare, can be due to cardiac arrest. And data from the National Weather Service from 1989 to 2018 shows that about 10% of people hit by lightning die, averaging, and I think this might be low because the other stuff I was looking into was more research-based, and the numbers seem a bit different than this. I don't know which one to go. I mean, this is the National Weather Service, but I'm looking at university information on the other side that's a little different than this. But they're saying on average, it's about 43 fatalities per year in the United States. But just from this, if we are running with this assumption that about 10% of people hit by lightning actually die, what are the odds that you're going to have a group of people that are hit, and we've got one person seemingly a bit away from the others, and all of them are going to die, when we're looking at only 10% of it happening on average for lightning strikes? Now, admittedly, it might be the type of strike, but we've got this kind of counterbalance of, well, serious burns may or may not happen. I don't know. So let's look over at another website for some more information on this. This is information from the American Journal of Forensic Medicine and Pathology from back in December 1988. So I know this is a little bit older, about specifically death by lightning. The victims are mostly young, active people. Interesting comparison just because it ties in with this so strongly. Who are struck during various outdoor activities. Once again, very interesting. During the summer months. I mean, if this thing wasn't written in 1988, I'd feel like someone, heard about this story and they just wrote that sentence. That is really mind-boggling to me. Even though many people can be struck by the same bolt of lightning, multiple casualties are uncommon. So here's another marker for, if this is a factor that we're looking at and we do have a group of people, there's a bolt of lightning and it hits all of them, the chances of multiple casualties, once again, uncommon. It's not saying out of the realm of possibility. Among the fatalities, various types of skin burns are regularly present, often at an entry site on or near the head and at an inferiorly located exit site. So kind of like that original assumption that I had. And when I did go looking into the deeper information, I did see pictures of these types of wounds. They're not always as graphic or as bad as you might imagine, particularly for survivors. Could almost look like just like a bit of a bad burn where like the skin has kind of worn away, but you can almost see like a spider bite pattern or almost like a lightning pattern, like where there's a section in the center where the skin has really been harmed, but then these kind of branches off from that. These skin injuries often consist of superficial burns and singed hair. Deep burns and charring are uncommon. So some of those other pictures that I was seeing that I was telling you about, like with the, basically like a part of your body being flash fried, are less common, it seems like. I don't know. I'm just really surprised and thinking about this whole lightning strike aspect and realizing one of these humans is 1 year old. And we're not seeing any indicators of that physically. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but based on the information I'm looking into here, I don't know how strong this is. There's another factor that is kind of dancing through my head on this, just because we know that this is an area that went through severe fires. I'm just wondering about the possibility of, is there some type of chemical that was used in terms of fighting the fire that might come into play in this somehow? I know there's been a lot of articles written recently about, in California in particular, about the chemicals that are dropped on these types of areas when they're burning to try to stop the spread of the fire. But from what I can see, those things are largely like over 90% made of water. There are some chemicals in there that can be a factor in terms of harming the environment. I'm seeing water sources and, fish that might be susceptible to some of the chemicals that are used in those fire retardants. I went looking specifically for information about that affecting humans, and I'm finding just some light notes about like super, super long-term problems and really, really not imminently health-threatening issues. So I don't know. I wasn't even sure if I was going to bring it up to you guys. I'm not trying to spin some bizarre theory on this, but I'm just thinking about what are the environmental factors in that area. We're talking about mines that haven't been used in decades and the possibility of that coming into play. But we know that in 2018, I don't know if there was a firefighting effort on that particular trail. I don't know. Did it get dropped with that, the big red stuff that gets dropped out of the planes all over California? I don't know. It's just another thing that I'm wondering, because we know the immediate history of that area as well. Or is it as simple as the exposure story? I struggle with that aspect too, just because we've got 3 people at very different points. 2 of them in particular at very different points in their life. Plus we've got a dog that is part of that, and their lives all end seemingly very, very close to each other. We know that it's no more than, it's no more than 24 hours. And we know that they're all found basically together. I don't know, guys, but I'm going to keep looking for updates, and we're going to see what happens with this toxicology. I hope and pray the answer is there, because if the answer isn't there, I imagine there's already a bunch of videos out there that are being made about aliens or Bigfoot or some other thing being responsible for this. I don't know. But I'm just really looking for the answer on this one. I know you guys are too. So just wanted to tell you the latest on it. Thank you so much for joining me here this week. We'll be back on Friday with a brand new mystery for you right here on the Lord and Arch channel.